First of all, thank you all and the audience. We have three eminent writers and a very enthusiastic crowd. And we are here to discuss about three separate incidents of flood, geographically wide apart. But I think the essence of these three tales are the same. So we are here to, explore the similarities and the differences between the experiences, how the people and the city faced this harrowing experiences and how they survived. And my responsibility is just to keep track of the time. We will have a freewheeling 45 minutes discussion, followed by maybe a 15 minutes question answer session, which is open to the public. First, start with Carey Baraka. I mean, these are the slides which I prepared, and I had some technical problem in, setting this right. Sorry about that. You come from Nairobi, which is in Maasai, as per the Maasai ethnic group, their definition is a place of cool waters. And it is ironic that the very reason for which you were so proud of these, rivers and lakes and waters became sort of a curse. Maybe because of unscientific planning and rapid urbanization. So I would love to start with you. And how do you, what is your take on the influence of urbanization and unscientific planning in causing these floods?
Yes, so Nairobi is like in Nairobi, the place of cool waters. And what happened is that like when the British were building the railway, they had like another couple of city plans.
Carey, can you speak into the mic, please? I think there is it's not audible.
Okay. Yes, so Nairobi is from the Maasai in Nairobi, which is the place of cool waters. And how this was like when the British were building the railway, they reached there was like a stop point which they reached at some point in the 19th century, and the stop point was a swamp, right? But it felt like a good place to stop because there was like other places were dry or like there were a lot of animals, but like with that swamp they felt safe, so like they were like, we're going to have a rest stop here, and then that became a city, that became Nairobi, right? And of course like the problem is that like the hydrological architecture that underpins Nairobi is still based on the swamp. So, while I didn't write about Nairobi, for instance, but basically every year when it rains in Nairobi becomes very flooded, right? Because like you have because it's all built on swampland, right? And part of the reason, so it's like a mixture of like the fact that like it was an unplanned city, nobody planned for it, it was just an accidental city, and also like the fact that like as with shifting climate, there's like more rain, and so like there are more incidences of flooding.
Yeah, and you did speak about, can you change the slide please? In your book, Drowning, A Drowning World, Kenya's Quiet Slide Underwater. This is an article which you published which was published in the Long Read. And this gives a very clear picture about how Kenya, what are the negative impacts that Kenya had to undergo, had to face during these floods in 2020, and how the dams have contributed. I mean, you do mention about in some other articles how the man-made human interventions aggravated the disaster. So can you Just elaborate on those points, please.
Yeah, so there's like a thing that is happening where the geological process of like the formation of the continents, there's a fault line that runs from Jordan all the way down into like across the Red Sea into Somalia, Ethiopia, then all the way down Kenya, Tanzania to Mozambique. And that's the Rift Valley. And like the idea is that like in maybe like a million years or so, Africa is going to split in half along that fault line, right? But then also at the same time, almost every single lake in East Africa, and not just Kenya, like Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, DRC, are all located along these fault lines. So there's like a line that runs from like Ethiopia to Tanzania. It has mountains, it has, I think Kilimanjaro is on it, and then it has all the lakes. And then there's like a fault line that runs from Uganda, DRC, Burundi, Rwanda, and other lakes. So all these lakes at some point started flooding. And the narrative battle was, some people were saying that like this is like floods caused by like human intervention. It's like poor planning or siltation or climate change, deforestation, all the usual things, right? But other people were saying that like the floods are not connected like humans. That like this is like a part of like the geological process that has happened in this region over like millions of years, right? And it was very fascinating that like a lot of people, because like the idea of Africa splitting is very romantic and it's very exciting, that is what they gravitated to. It's like what is happening with like, because all the lakes were like expanding at the same time from around 2010, they were all expanding. And people sort of latched to that romantic idea of they are expanding because Africa is splitting into two, and this is like the sea coming between Africa.
Now I think we can move on to you, Krupa, and you have published a lot of articles, and the book Rivers Do Not Forget. I mean, it has been. I mean. Rivers remember. I mean, okay. Rivers remember. And humans, I mean, they tend to forget, but rivers do remember the space which they used to occupy. I mean, that is the main gist of what the book that Krupa has written, and Amitav Ghosh, famous writers, I mean, they have commented that your book is a must read. I mean, in the list of must-read books, they have included yours also. And how do you view this urbanization and unscientific planning, which it might have contributed to the Chennai flood also, and blocking of natural drainages or structural changes in land use? What is your take on this, please?
Yeah. With the Chennai floods, there was a CAG report itself that was done by the government of India, and the CAG also found that there were massive irregularities by the PWD around public lands, and so which is possibly one of the major reasons for the flood having been that bad in 2015. But the other thing is, when the flood happened in 2015, we heard the term once in a 100-year flood a lot.
That is the same thing which we also heard.
Right?
Yeah.
But when the floods have been coming back in subsequent years, we've stopped hearing that term, because it's not that it comes only once in 100 years. It's that the volume is that big. It could happen many times. So it's a bit of a misnomer. And so there are extreme rain events happening. There is really poor planning going on. Coastal areas are more prone to, especially low-lying areas where we have occupied lands that were meant to be free, where what you call the Porambok lands in Tamil, which is meant to be grazing lands, which is meant to be left free, have all been constructed. And all of this, it's a combination of everything. But more than anything, the 2015 floods, I think, was most deadly for so many people, because there was just, the bureaucracy had sort of, was not allowed to work, I would say, because of the government the way it was functioning at that time. And people were not warned that so much water is being let out of the reservoir, and a lot of the guidelines were not followed. The reservoirs had not been maintained, and the guidelines for maintenance of reservoirs hadn't been followed since the 1980s. So everything together made the perfect recipe for possibly the worst.
Do you see any change after 2015? I mean, frankly speaking, do you see any change?
So there are two major changes now that I see. One is the fact that this government realizes they can no longer afford to be seen as not working, because the opposition would just finish them off if they were not on the ground.
Yeah.
The other thing is, there is a jugaad even for climate change in India now. They've started to pump water. So the long-term solution has been put on hold, and so there's a short-term solution now. So places don't flood, and when they do flood, they flood for a short period of time, by which time they've cleared the waters and people have moved on. So I feel like there is some change, but we'll have to see if such an event were to occur again, we'll know if we're really prepared or not.
Yeah, this is the book that Krupa wrote, Reverse Remember, which gives a very clear picture about how the system, it was failed in managing the disaster, and how best it could have been managed. And she had filed a lot of batches of RTIs, getting information from various departments, and she had compiled and collated all this information into this book. So congratulations to you. Next one, please. Next slide. Now we move on to Kerala floods. We all are familiar with what had happened in Kerala in way back in 2018, and 11 out of 14 districts were totally ravaged by the floods, and this is being classified as one of the 5 most severe disasters during 2015 and 2019. If you look for the list, then Kerala flood do figure in that list. And I would like to get Ms. Sandhya's opinion about what is your perspective about planning, and should we have listened or taken care of the Gadgil committee report, and what is your take on this, please?
Kerala flood is a class 3 disaster, as you have told, and we all know that after 1924 flood, after 100 years only, Kerala was facing such a situation. So we were totally unprepared. All of us were totally unprepared, and as Krupa says, rivers remember. For example, Pandanad, an area in Alapi district, we never knew that Pandanad is lying 5 feet below sea level until and unless the floods happened, and over electric lines we were all moving on boats, and then only we realized. After that only we learned many things. Preparedness was totally lacking, and monsoon was incessant from July onwards. From June itself it started. July it was at its peak, and low-lying areas in Alapi district and all flooded in July itself. So then again the second one happened in August, and then all the reservoirs were opened, and the tides were also against us. So that was neap tide time, and that also was against us.
just keep on speaking into the mic. I mean, when you turn your head.
So finally, the disaster happened, and without all of us realizing, including the government machinery, people, everybody, without realizing, we were into deep disaster. And of course, machinery was moving very fast then. All the departments were working in tandem with each other, no doubt. But the preparedness part and also the awareness regarding climate change. For example, the Gadgil report, we just kept it away. 2011, it was published, but it is affecting 6 states. Western Ghats are home for several thousands of animal and plant species, including rare ones. And climate change was affecting, and left and right constructions without any heed to environmental factors that of course had played a major role. But this rain, which was more than 2,200 millimeters of rain, which came in a very short period, was a very rare phenomena that we do not know when it will occur. We again face the same thing in 2019 in northern parts, again in 20 in Idukki. It is repeating also.
Yeah, I think we will have to be prepared in the coming years for these relentless raining in a shorter window of time. It is the same in almost all the cities, especially in developing countries, where what you had experienced in Kenya and what Krupa has written about the flood in Chennai, the Kerala flood, all say the same, all tell the same story, that we have to be, it is time that we start preparing for this heavy rain in a shorter period of time. This is the book that Miss Sandhya had published. It is published by Mathrubhumi Publications. And next please, next slide please. And I think we need to also talk about not only about the environmental impacts, but about how the communities get displaced. Especially, these fisher folk, they had saved around 65,000 lives, but the very same community has been somewhat neglected when it comes to rehabilitation and relief packages. And next please, next slide. Their livelihoods totally lost, because we are living in a time where every year 1 millimeter or 2 millimeter rise in the sea level is happening, and their livelihoods are at stake. So how would you perceive the floods in Kenya? And can you talk briefly about how the displacement of community has happened there, just briefly?
Yeah, so like what happened in Kenya was slightly different to what has happened in Chennai and Kerala, because say with these floods where it was an intense period of rain at once and then people are displaced. In Kenya, what happened is that the rains didn't happen at once, but over a 10-year period, right? So it's say one day the lake expands by 1 centimeter, another day by 1 centimeter. In 1 week, it's nothing, right? But then fast forward 5 years, it becomes a big thing. And so over 10 years, all these lakes, there's a lake which doubled in size, others expanded by 80% or whatever. So what happened is that the displacement wasn't instantaneous. It was you can see the lake coming, but then in 10 years, you go back. I went to all these villages, people are showing me that oh, that's my house. It's inside the lake, right? And you can see electricity poles, all the like features of like urbanization or whatever. So yeah, so that's like the way people are displaced. It's that like they own the land, and then like 10 years later, their land is under the water, right? And it's and what has sadly happened is that a lot of them have ended up being like rendered homeless in essence, right? And because it's not like a case of instant flooding, they also like it's not clear that they would ever go back to their houses. Because like their houses have been inside the water for like 5 years. So it's like, it's not like there's a point when the water will recede and they'll go back, because nobody knows what is happening with the lakes.
Yeah. There are many instances where the entire villages in Kenya had been washed away in the floods, and wherever these people were forced to relocate, they had to face constant, incessant attacks from the crocodiles and the hippopotamus. And this is a picture, telltale, evidence of how people lost their limbs and arms, and they had to survive. And next, please. I think the picture is missing here. It was a picture about a primary school. There are 39 schools, primary schools, got inundated in Kenya because the water moved 5 kilometers inland. Next, please. Next. And there is also a story about how the national park in Kenya got submerged. And these wildlife, next please. These wildlife conflicts are a common feature, have become a common feature in Kerala also. Not only because of the floods, but because of encroachments into the forest land. And we have lost about 123 lives in 18 months in Kerala. Next, please. So I would like to pose a question to all the panelists as to what is the role of the fourth estate or the press and the media, as you are all writers. So what role do you perceive when you talk about the rights? There is always a mismatch between the rights of human beings and rights of animals or birds. I mean, how do you balance? I mean, what is your view on this? How do you speak about it? Is it easy to speak about the, wildlife, rights of the wildlife? I would like to hear from you, Krupa.
I'm sorry, what is it easier to speak?
Speak about the animal rights rather than, there is always a conflict between the human rights and the animal rights.
Right.
Is it easy to, as a writer, I mean, what have you felt?
So even with, I think every field comes with its own sort of pros and cons. So with wildlife, I think those who are working in wildlife will probably tell you that there's not being enough is not being done. Okay. But what I felt like when I was working on the flood book, for instance, was that the media had completely failed the people, who were sort of struggling with the floods. And when it comes to the man-animal conflict and sort of in that, I would say I think there's only so much that the media can do. I think there needs to be some sort of there has to be an institutional sort of change that has to come. And I know that Viju has written a book on the Kerala floods about the Western Ghats and the influence of the changing climate in the Western Ghats and the people who live there. And I guess it is a very romantic notion to sort of speak about the birds and the animals in the wild, as opposed to the people who are very much a part of that ecosystem. Nature, yeah. And so when we say this whole man-animal conflict, we've already created this thing saying that this man does not belong there. You know, especially when it comes to Adivasi communities and those who actually have historically depended on these hills and these water bodies for their livelihood. So I think it's a very complicated sort of, you know, balance has to be struck, and I definitely the press needs to do more. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
I think Carey has also written about how you know, the government waited till a report, special report on Kenya's flooding was published by the United Nations to start responding. You had indicated in one of your articles. Next, please. Next slide, please. And I would like to get a comment from Ms. Sandhya. We have been depending upon, you know, foreign aid and these foreign concepts, or maybe, I mean, from concepts, developmental concepts from other countries like Netherlands, room for river projects. Does it do any good? I mean, in your opinion, and it's a very direct question, and you can...
I think, Thara, you yourself must be an apt person to answer this question because you have been with the Disaster Management Authority. We have all heard. I have been also talking to Mr. Shekhar, Secretary. Yeah, he was telling me this room for river project is yet to take off. So we cannot comment on something which is yet to take off. But at the same time, we can also see our ecosystem. I think we know better than anybody else. And very small things. For example, the area in Kuttanad, it's low-lying. Everybody knows that we cannot have the type of houses in Kuttanad. The way how it is constructed right now, that type of houses we can no more have there. After the 2018 flood, I gave a reporter to police headquarters that that Ramankari and other police station, Pulingunna police station, it is in a way my own mother station, my husband's place.
Can you hold the mic closer?
So what happened, the police stations were inundated, and one ASI had 3 times smitten by a snake during the flood while he was removing all the files from the flooded police station. So what I suggested was a police station raised on pillars. That has now become a reality. I was so happy to see as a DG Fire and Rescue Services while I was visiting, these policemen invited me to go to that police station. Madam, your dream is now a reality. So this is this shows that government has learned a lesson, and what we have learned, we are slowly implementing. So this is just for a police station, it's all right. What about other government offices and human dwelling? Human dwelling also we have to change. The area in Kainadi police station limit. Even now also you will say 80% is almost waterlogged area only. It's almost in water. So we have to have constructions which are able to cope with frequent flooding and waters. So these sort of changes we must learn. Ourselves learn and implement, and also with the help of the community. That is what I have been talking in my book also. The community policing project has helped us to muster the fishermen community. As soon as we alerted them, they were ready to go with their boats anywhere with us. So that sort of a bridge we had built in 10 years. The community policing project, the Janamaitri Suraksha project was there in place for 10 years. So it was very easy for us to move as a community together. These sort of community preparedness, togetherness, these things matters a lot.
Yeah, I think you have already answered the next question which I wanted to ask you. I mean, stories of hope and resilience. and how the community policing, these beat officers had helped in rescue and relief operations. The same story, also I think stories of hope and resilience in your city also you may be able to share from Kenya. Carey, please.
Yeah, it's a combination of whatever is happening with like the lakes or the rivers. People still need to live, they still need to go to school, they still need to go to work, take their children to hospital. And because of that, a person can't just give up because their home is flooded.
Yeah, this is a picture from your place. I think many of the local community people, they also ventured into the flooded area trying to rescue people. Next slide, please. This is a story from Kerala, actually, how Chekuti dolls, the whole handloom, whatever saris they had prepared, it all got damaged. And they were converted into this Chekuti dolls, and they made some profit out of it. So this stands as a symbol of resilience of Kerala. And next slide, please. I think from Chennai also, you may be having similar stories to tell. Do you, can you share of how the city was resilient? How the people reacted to this devastating floods when the system failed?
Yeah. The first time around, yes, definitely. I think everybody was out on the streets, and if you were rescued by somebody, then you went out and you rescued others. And there were community kitchens where people were volunteering to cook food for everybody, and then people would go in boats and offer food and water to people who were stranded in 12 feet water. But I feel like hope as a currency is sort of running low, because we had a flooding incident happen this November as well, and we didn't see nearly as many people as we saw the first time around. Because I think one is, of course, that the administration was out there and everybody felt a little bit like, okay, somebody else is taking care of us. But also I feel like I think people are beginning to get a little tired of, having to pick up after, what is probably the state's problem. So I think hope is sort of, it's there, but I think it won't be there if this is regular. That's what I feel.
And one last question before we open the session to question answer is how in your book, Krupa, you have mercilessly pointed fingers at how the system failed. And in the post-truth era, it is not very difficult, it is very difficult to speak truth and survive. How challenging it is to speak the truth, and especially when you are talking against the system, polity and the governance. How challenging it has turned out to be
so
for you?
The challenge is in actually the fact that all of the tools that we have been defanged. So the Right to Information Act exists right now only in paper, right? So we're not. So there's still some of my queries to officers that are doing the rounds in air. So information has just stopped coming out. But whatever I did get is what I managed to, write in the book. And the government, by the time this book came out in Tamil Nadu, actually had become totally also defanged, because Ms. Jayalalitha was gone, and then it was an interim government. And so actually I didn't have to face the full might of what I might have if she was still around, in a sense. uh, but even these days, even with progressive governments, you find that if you do point out something that is wrong, that has happened, trolling of a scale that you cannot imagine happens on the internet, on social media, and it has happened. So.
Thank you. Interestingly, when we talk about all these floods, I mean, whatever you have faced in Chennai or in Kenya and what we have faced in Kerala, everywhere there are instances or reports about increased amount of rains in a shorter period of time. And more than that, what aggravated the situation is that is the human intervention, how we have changed the land, I mean land use patterns, so on and so forth. So I think the takeaway lesson is the same from all the floods, be it in Kenya or Chennai or in Kerala, that we have to respect nature and we should know our boundaries, where we should stop. So I think we will leave the discussion open to questions. If you have any questions, ask the question.
My name is Asha. I live in Trivandrum. I'm a neuroscientist and currently also a writer. So,
can you speak into the mic?
Yeah, the 2018 floods was a true eye-opener in the sense that Trivandrum wasn't really affected, but I mean, one saw live images on TV and it was scary and shocking. But the best thing was how much people really came together. You know, I went to the margin free near my house to pick up things to donate, and it was completely, people had bought everything not for themselves, but to send to the flood affected areas. So that was very heartening, and even the fisher people that you said, you know, who came out and went in boats and everything. My question is, have we really learned, or has the government really learned? And I'm not so sure about that. The floods that came after that, it wasn't, see, they also made a mistake with the dams, I think, the first one. Then that mistake they learned, but the other ones came with landslides, you know, but we're still bombarding that area, you know, we are trying to, take stones, quarrying, and all of that is going on in the Western Ghats, and they're allowing it. They want a tunnel through Wayanad or something, which also sounds very disastrous to me. And recently, at this latest budget, the finance minister announced this. He said, 200 crores out of, they're trying to create revenue, 200 crores out of sand mining in rivers, which he said is very healthy for rivers and will stop flooding. So I'm not an expert in this, and I hope that somebody could comment on this.
Yeah, the latest budget, it clearly mentions, the finance minister clearly mentions that sand mining from the rivers will improve the health of the rivers, and it will, take care of the flood, impacts also. Would you like to stress on the need for retaining these sandbanks, and what is your take on this?
See, sand mining alone cannot save this, because we are taking, actually we are bombarding the hills. When we are bombarding the hills, of course maybe for construction purpose only they may be doing it. When we are doing it, what will happen? The mud will come down the rivers. That's what is happening in Kuttanad area especially, and all other areas. All rivers, we know that depth is going down and down. Vembanad Lake also, the same thing is happening. So when this mud is coming and silt is forming, silt has to be removed, no doubt. But removal of silt alone will not help until and unless we stop this excavation of hilly areas, because we are a very narrow land. It is highlands above, middle land, and then sea. So it is, the slope is also like that. From east to west is the slope. So all these things are coming down, and we all know during monsoon, before monsoon, if we are not cleaning, We keep as Fire Force DG, we used to present in CM's meeting always. Pre-monsoon cleaning must happen, otherwise in the first rain itself, all the dam shelters, all the bridges and all, whatever is there, it will come and block, immediate flooding will happen. So they will ask the Fire Force to go and remove. It is not our duty to do that, we cannot do that also. It is all simple firefighting. We have to think very clearly. We should have ideas about what is happening to the ecosystem as a whole. We have to see, and we are seeing Idukki, we have seen when there are a lot of landslides. We are going, every panchayat is building a road right up the hill. Earlier in our childhood, we have seen only roads going round and round the hill. The primary teachers we used to tell us why we are doing this, why we can do only this way. But now we see every panchayat want to build road like this to their panchayat. This is happening. We have not stopped. So Idukki's landslides is going to be a frequent affair until and unless we stop it. And I cannot give a purely scientific reason, but at least we are having this rubber plantation for 3-4 generations now. So the sand will be loose with these sort of trees.
Yeah, monocrop will always lead to...
monocrop and especially crops like rubber. It is deteriorating the area. That is why that Kavalapara, Vadakanjeri and all, it's happening because of this.
Yeah, I would like to get a response from Carey. Do you have this problem of sand mining in your area, in your country also? I mean, rampant sand mining from the rivers leading to environmental disasters.
It's something that happens also in Kenya and I guess Tanzania, especially along the Indian Ocean. And yeah, there are all these concerns about you can't make a river or like an ocean or a lake safer by mining the sand. It makes it worse, right? So there are all these fears about what that does to the degradation of the coastline. And of course, the moment one of the big effects is that it leads to whenever there's flooding, it's going to be more severe because the protection offered by say the trees which are there for sand mining isn't offered anymore. So yeah, it's also something that happens in Kenya. Yeah.
Okay.
Gracious.
I didn't get your name, sorry.
Gracious എന്നാണ്.
Please.
നമ്മുടെ സമുദ്രതീരത്തിൽ കൺസ്ട്രക്ഷൻസ് കൊണ്ടും ഗ്ലോബൽ വാർമിംഗ് കൊണ്ടും തീരെ നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടവരാണ്. അതായത് അവിടെ മണൽ കുറഞ്ഞവരാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ പുഴകളിൽ നിന്നുള്ള മണൽ അവിടെ ഇപ്പോൾ നിലവിലെത്തുന്നില്ല. അപ്പോൾ അതൊരു വിഷയമായിട്ട് ഞാൻ കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. മറ്റൊന്ന് 2 ചോദ്യമാണ്. രണ്ടാമത്തത് ഈ നദികളുടെ സംയോജനത്തെ പറ്റി പറയുന്നുണ്ട്.
നദികളുടെ
സംയോജനം
അത്
ഇത്തരം ഫ്ലഡ് കണ്ടീഷനിലുണ്ടാകുന്ന നേട്ടങ്ങളും മറ്റ് പാരിസ്ഥിതിക ഇമ്പാക്റ്റും നമ്മുടെ കേരളത്തിനെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് മാഡം ചിന്തിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതൊന്ന് അറിയാൻ കൊള്ളാം.
She is asking whether, I mean, it is open to all the panelists. He is observing that this sand mining from the rivers, that is the main source of sand on the beach. So their habitats, I mean the fisher folks' habitats is, I mean it is slowly getting destroyed when you start mining the river sand. So I just wanted to get your reaction to that and any one of the panelists, and also our opinion about interlinking of rivers. I mean, would you like to, if you want to, would like to comment on that, you can do. Otherwise, you can just leave the.
I think the existing wisdom among biologist says that the interlinking of rivers would be disastrous for
exactly.
The ecological balance of, and we can't even predict what could possibly happen when we decide to connect these rivers. And already in Chennai, for instance, this year the government did a really great job with stormwater drains. But because we are a coastal city and we had both flooding and cyclone happen at the same time in Chennai this November, the water was not emptying out from the rivers and the lakes into the ocean fast enough. And because we had better stormwater drains this time, the ocean was sending water back into the drains, and more areas were flooded that weren't flooded the first time around this time because we have drains and stuff. So this is just with a small city level drain that you're talking about. I can't imagine what climate change and the rising ocean and interlinking of rivers would even do to our cities, and they're too fragile. I don't think they can handle it.
കൃപ പറഞ്ഞത് ഈ നദീ സംയോജനം തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും പാരിസ്ഥിതിക ആഘാതമുണ്ടാക്കും. അതിനോട് അവർ ഒരു വ്യക്തി എന്നുള്ള രീതിയിലും ഒരു എഴുത്തുകാരി എന്നുള്ള രീതിയിലും അവർ യോജിക്കുന്നില്ല. പിന്നെ ഈ ചെന്നൈയിൽ ഈ അധികമുള്ള വെള്ളത്തിനെ ഒഴുക്കിക്കളയാൻ വേണ്ടി അവർ സ്റ്റോം വാട്ടർ ഡ്രെയിൻസ് അത് ഉണ്ടാക്കി. അതായത് നമ്മുടെ നിലവിലുള്ള ഓടകൾക്ക് പുറമെ ഒരു എക്സ്ട്രാ ഒരു അഡീഷണൽ ഒരു ഓട പോലെ അത് ഈ ഒരുപാട് വെള്ളം വരുമ്പോൾ അത് ഒഴുക്കി പോകാനായിട്ട് അവർ അത് സഹായിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഈ താങ്കൾ പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ ഈ നിർമ്മാണ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ, ഈ കടൽ തീരത്തുള്ള നിർമ്മാണ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ, നമ്മുടെ CRZ വയലേഷൻസ് തന്നെ ഒരുപാടുണ്ട്. ഒരുപാട് അതിലുകൂടി വെള്ളം തിരിച്ച് വരുന്നു, ആ സ്റ്റോം വാട്ടർ ഡ്രെയിനിൽ കൂടി തിരിച്ച് വരുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ അതുകൊണ്ട് ഈ ഇങ്ങനെ പല ടെക്നോളജിക്കൽ സൊല്യൂഷൻസും അതുകൊണ്ടുള്ള സാങ്കേതിക പ്രശ്നങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന ദുരന്തങ്ങളും രണ്ടുമുണ്ട്. അതൊരു ബാലൻസ് ചെയ്ത് നമ്മൾ കൊണ്ടുപോയാലേ പറ്റുള്ളൂ. താങ്ക് യു ഫോർ യുവർ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ. How do we educate the politicians? I mean, that is a very
bill. I mean, a budget thing saying 200 crores we are going to raise out of sand mining, and 10,000 acres of rural coastal area here is going to be given for townships. You know, townships meaning building and construction. Apart from the fact that that land will go, you know, and that again comes from the sand mining. And when the metro project in Kochi was coming, Sridharan was behind it, and he kept on insisting on river sand. He said, "Idinu shakti venongil river sand thanne venam, namukku chummadulla sand onnum pattathilla."
Alla, Dr. Asha, I would like to mention here about the possibilities of alternative materials to be used in construction. There is a site, there is an organization in Delhi, it's a Government of India organization, Central Road Research Institute, CRRI. Just go to their website. They have umpteen number of materials being suggested as alternative materials for construction, including fly ash, etc., etc. This is being now exported to other countries, including Singapore. We can start using these alternative resources here instead of going for sand or rocks. We can start using these alternative materials. And recently there was a report about Goan Engineering College having a tie-up with German some institute, where these plastic waste materials are being converted into bricks, which again can be used in construction, I mean, with some sort of fire retarding material will be pasted on that, and this can be utilized for construction. And there is a tie-up between Goan Engineering College and the French institution. So these are all possibilities which we could be or we should be exploring. I would love to, I think it is time to wind up the session, and when we wind up, let us remind ourselves that these are not freak isolated incidents. These are telltale evidences where, which tells you that if you cross the limits, then the nature can become very hostile. And humans have very short memories, but rivers do not forget. That is the carry home message that we always have to keep in our minds. Thank you very much, Mathrubhumi, for giving us an opportunity. Thank you very much, Carey and Krupa and Ms. Sandhya and all the members in the audience, and for all the questions that you have shared. Thank you so much. Thank you.